So the pattern printer software is a software that is actually takes design files, typically from platform as a Corel Draw, where the files are AI or DXF or EPS. So typically a sign company will design and prepare a work to do, and so that design is sent to a router. The router will take so the pattern printer have an option to import files as an AI, EPS, DXF, and also a G-code that is more like an older kind of a file. So when you have a cutting file, the router takes it and they follow knots that are telling the router where to go. So when you bring those cutting files to the pattern printer, you select the extension that you're bringing in, DXF or AI. For example, in the DXF files, I have a couple ones there that we can use to kind of understand how this process works. So I have this file that includes different set of letters in the same file. The pattern printer, as the router, it doesn't really care of the shape, so it's not really just for letters. It can be for logos or other things. But understanding that when you're creating this file and you're thinking how you're going to wrap the metal around this shape, you have to make a couple of decisions. So first you import this file. Like in this file in particular, one of the things that you primarily do, or at the beginning do, is you smooth this file. That takes the noise, knots and different things that maybe the software can clean out of the file. And then when you smooth the file, then you're going to start splitting. The material will go typically around the letter, and you can have multiple points where you're splicing this material. So it can be one, it can be two, but with LetterEdge we typically only have a one split point. So when you're going to split your return, you go typically to the upper left corner. I didn't point right to the corner, so if I say that, see, it actually took, I didn't point my icon to it. So because I made a mistake and I said yes, do it, I can actually remove it by joining it. That's another function of the pattern printer. But that's another thing, you know. If you are splitting your returns, you go to the upper left corner, and you will do that for each letter. So typically you load up your file, and then you split it as you go. You split all the upper left corners. Why do I say upper left corner? Well, typically a sign will be seen from under, and so if the material ends on that corner and I leave a little portion, a little piece, that will be the point where the two metals are going to tap to each other. That's the tap joint. If we do it at the end, it's going to be on top of the letter. So from under, you will see, like, if the letter is made by one single piece. If you do this tab in another point, it'll be more obvious and you will see it. Let's say this sign per se is going to be at eye level. So then probably what you do is, for example, here on the R, I probably will do it down here in the corner, because from your eye view you're going to see that split point down below, so you're not going to see the joint underneath. So that's the idea of selecting your split point. So you're not just splitting at random places, you're actually thinking how the sign is going to be finished and how it's going to be perceived. So thinking that this is going to be up high, higher than your eye level, so then we want all the split points up on top. Typically on the upper corner, like on the center, if you think about it, if I do it on the upper part, now you're going to see the split point on the top. So from your eye level up, you're going to see it. So I'm going to put it on the bottom corner. And so same thing with the D on the upper corner, but the center of the D, I'm going to do it on the bottom corner. And so here we have another conundrum here with this letter. It's rounded, it's not a corner, but you can actually make a butt joint on the top. And that will be also a split point, or you can select another corner for it to do that. Can be favorable. Sometimes you want to see where you're going to put this split point, and you can actually go to the setup of the system and show the points. These are the points that the router actually follow when it was doing the piece, and so that will show the points where you can drop that split point, and so it's kind of familiar. But in this case, it's not that critical. But yes, you need to split it probably on the top. Probably that will be a good point. She's questioning because I'm not actually dropping it on a node. But if I say yes, it's going to select that point most likely where I wanted it. So when you have something like this, you split them all. Normally, you will save this file. And why you do that? Well, you might not be printing it all today. And the other thing is, if you're going to do a like sign in the later on day or time, you can actually bring it because it's saved and it'll keep all the split points, so you don't have to redo them. So you save it as, and that will actually take this file to a different extension. You import it as an AI, and because the native language of the software is a Logix program, is going to be saved as an LGX extension file. Those files will actually keep all the information that you have. You can change them and resave them if you you want to do it a different way, but that's kind of like a nice thing. So let's say you have that, you save it as, you go home, and then tomorrow, some other day, you just come, you can just click open, find your file, and you have all the split points right where you want it. Another interesting thing that you had to kind of learn is that when you use a pattern printer software, is that you have a couple options. It's not limited to the LetterEdge product. Somebody can actually use it for regular aluminum letters, and even for a welded kind of a letters. If you're doing flat aluminum on LetterEdge, it typically goes outside of the shape. Either LetterEdge is glued directly to the plastic, or if you do with flat aluminum, you form the letter and then you have a trim cap that's around it. But let's say you're going to weld it. So that means that the shape has a perimeter, and the metal is actually going to be behind on the inside. So that will be a reverse return according to our system. So that brings all the lollipops to the inside. So that means that the shape of the letter would have, instead of the material going on the outside of the letter, the metal will actually be behind the shape of the letter. So let's say this is actually metal, and you have a metal return. That means the shape is actually fitting behind, so you don't see it, and so it'll be welded on the inside. That will be in case that you're doing a letter where the shape is behind and is welded. For letterage, it will always be on the standard return setup, and that means the metal is on the outside of the shape. When you are going to print this job, typically you want to print letter by letter, so you don't have a lot of paper coming out of the printer, so you don't have, so your paper is usable and things like that. So typically what you do is you Control Shift and select the letter. That is red and all the other ones are black. If I click on the screen, they're all going to be black. If I click on one, it only checks a section, but if you do a Control Shift will take the whole shape, or you can actually also surround with your right button and do that, but sometimes it's harder, for your fingers. But Control Shift and select the letter will change it in color, so when you print it, you're outputting that to a printing peripheral. So your output to the pattern printer, and you're not going all layers because that will be all your letters. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a selected, and that's the one that we did on the L. And so you put selected and then you send it for printing. That will do the process and then print for the letter. The printout is quite simple to understand. If you think about, you have a start of a piece that is telling you to cut right there. You have a bend up. That means the piece is actually bending like this, bend up. Then you have the next section, bend up. Next section, bend up, bend up. This is the crotch of the L. That's actually a bend down that I have here somewhere. Sorry.
That's all right.
That's a bend down and then bend up. So if you think about that, it's telling you the point where you start, where you bend, and so on until you get to the end of the piece, and we have the end of the letter plus enough space for your tab. So that is a simple way of doing it. Now, when you're doing a job like this, you're actually looking at a job from the front. But when you're going to do the wrapping of the letter, you're actually going to do it kind of facing down. That changes the order. So the end of the piece and your start of the piece, we can probably move here. If you think about the start of the piece and the end of the piece, we write from left to right. But because we're working with a letter facing down, we're going to switch this around. So your end of the piece is going to be on your left hand side and the start on the right. And that is because we're feeding the material through our leveler with the front part of the material toward us and the foam to the back. The foam is the back part of the metal, the back part of the letter. So if you were going to do a letter like this L, then the shape of the letter will be like that, and you will see it. And that's how this one works. So the label is has a self-adhesive side. Typically what we do is we attach this right on top of the beater, in that, because that's the thicker part of the material, and that's the one that is going to be against the plastic. You peel that apart and you attach it. The label is actually made at 2 inches of width, so it works perfectly for our 5-inch material that is wider, and also for the 3-inch material. That is also the standards for the sign industry. you can attach this material onto the into the letter edge material, this label, and that will give you the points where you're going to be doing your bending and your forming. Let's say another interesting thing, you know, when you have a shape, we have a shape that is all square. Like in this case, we have one that has rounded sides. How will you see it on the printout? Well, it's also quite simple to understand. We're going to output it. We have to select the letter first, of course. So we have the G selected. We're going to output the letter. We're going to send it to the pattern printer as selected piece. And we say OK. So we print that G. So we have a starter piece. And you can see these continued lines. That means because it's telling us arc up. So what is, how can you understand an arc up? You know, we are attaching it to the metal, so we can see it facing up. We're saying that the start is going to be on our right hand, and the end is going to be on our left hand side. So we can actually come and attach it to the metal, and we'll see that it's actually telling us that it's an arc up. That means the material is arcing toward us, kind of like this. It'll be arcing up. We have bend down. That means that it's going to bend like this, the metal. This is a bend up, so it goes up. Then you have a bend up again. And you follow that shape until you get to this section that is an arc down. So it's arcing down. It's the inside of the G. It's arcing contrary to how you see in it. Then you have your bend up, and again an arc up. So like I mentioned, you know, the pattern printer really does not understand if it's making letters or shapes as logos and things like that. So if we instead of opening, I'm going to import a file. It's going to be an AI. So okay, and I have a couple letters that that I thought I had. That's in a different shape. So if in this one, if you think about this letter, it's actually not the letter G. It's actually the outside of the G. It's a logo for this letter, for Grimco. That's a commercial. Anyway, so if you're gonna do this shape, like I mentioned, probably what you're gonna do, you load up your file, you smooth, so you take away all the noise that maybe the system can do. You split the return. The software actually gives you a suggestion. You don't have to take it. I like to split up there on the top. Like I said before, this is a standard return, so that means the lollipop I wanted on the outside. That means the material is on the outside of the shape. Having this shape like this, then I go to an output, pattern printer, and I can do all layers because I don't have no more letters, so I can do just that as straight. Something that maybe you want to do is save as, so you can have that for future reference. Having that G logo, this one offers multiple curves and straights that are quite simple to follow. It will always show you at the beginning of the printout what is it that you're doing. It actually tells you what is the length of the material that you're going to be using by the end of the piece. The end of the piece, and we're going to put it on our left hand side. We're going to put the start of the piece on your right hand. Like in this job, we're actually doing the split point up on the top. So you attach your label onto your material of choice. In this case, we're using letter edge material in orange, 3-inch, and it'll fit pretty easy on the material. If you end up putting it a little bit crooked, you can kind of pick it up and carry on your sticking. That's not too critical, and you have a chance to actually, compensate or fix it as you go. So at this point we have a piece where you started it. We have an arc up all the way to here. We have a straight. It's going to be bend up, bend up. It's going to be an arc down, arc down with the bend down, bend down, bend down, bend up. And then it's going to carry on with an arc that is actually an arc up. Then bend down, bend down. So we don't need this no more. We can release that. And we need this much material. So you have a clear line where you're going to be your cutting. And that's going to be the actual length of the piece. You have now an opportunity to, one, you can prepare the tab for this letter. With letter edge, we do something like this. We need to release a little bit of material here, because that will be our tab joint piece. And I don't need this material here. Now we have a bend up that we can follow with our bending tools. Let me show you this. How would you bend it? This is a pneumatic bender that you can have with your compressed air in your shop. So when you're doing a bend up process, you have a line, so it's open. You can see where the bends are going to be, and that will take it just like that. That will be a corner for your tab that is bend up. This one reads bend up. We're going to line it up with the die, and that will be bent up just like so. I'm following that. Now we're having a arc down. It reads, so from here to here is going to be an arc down. For that, we're going to use a roller kit, where we are going to say start the arc here and finish it there. So we're going to just roll the material. It is a good idea, always whenever you're doing a piece like this, that your plastic shape can be available, and that is so you can follow the the sign. We're actually doing the bending there. So we have that there. We have a bend down and a bend down that correspond to our two inside bends on the shape. We could actually do all the bends at once, and is no need to start on one end and carry on to the other one, because actually the break is open on the top, so you can go in and out simply and pretty easy. You line up your bending line with the die and bend it and bend down. The next one. Then we're gonna have a arc up, so that means it's arcing on the direction of the inside part. It's bending like this, like so. So you can come and do, you roll, you put the material on the roller kit and you roll it. You don't just pull it, you roll it. That will give the shape. That will make the curve on the shape. We have a bend up instruction, bend down. So like we said, bend up, his face is bending in this direction. So it'll go just like so. Align it to the shape, to the line. And right next we have it down. So that means we just flip it around, line it up, line it up, and bend. We have another bend down right next to it. So at this point, this is kind of like an interesting shape. And one critical point is to know that we can actually fit in here. And so this actually is telling us that the bend is right to the shape, because it's going into it, quite simply. So from there we can carry on onto the shape. This one is telling us to arc down. So from here to here is going to be an arc down. So we roll it downward. So it's arc down. We have a bend up, bend up. So we can flip it around, bend it up. And like I mentioned, it's called bent up because we're looking from the inside. It's bending in the upward direction. And we have only the arc up left to do. And that will be something we achieve with our roller. Doing it like so. At this point, the label is not really needed, so we could actually remove it so we can have a clear access to the inside of the piece, so it can be glued onto the metal. So we can remove actually this label. So we can then proceed to fit our piece together. This will go in like so. This is a curve that goes around. This go first. So this will be this outside part, like this, and it'll come around and shape the letter like that. Of course, this letter is still, there are some steps we need to do. We have to go on to a pegboard table or a magnet table, a metal table with magnets, where you can actually jig this piece facing down, so you can then apply Weldon number 4 and then Weldon number 16 to make this glue joint. It's a bonding between the plastic of the beetle that is attached to the letter edge material against the acrylic that is our shape to do. So here we can see that it's quite simple to shape a complex letter with the pattern printer and software.